Episode 3 of Wrestling with History. I'm Avi Klein, Stevie Ray, as always. A couple of things happened, wrestling related. A couple of days ago on Saturday, April the 20th, 20 years to the date, Rick Rude had passed away. Did you get a chance to interact with Rick, or was he sort of...
Oh, yeah, many times.
On the way out?
Many times. Rick was a good friend, bro.
You hear a lot of stories about Rick being a great family man, a good, loyal, honest, hardworking guy.
Cool guy. Nothing like his character.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, in the days that I knew him. But within the circles of professional wrestling, he's mentioned a lot of times, maybe not chronicled in the mass media, the wrestling media, or something like that.
Sure.
But in the annals of professional wrestling and how that goes on in this underground world of what we call professional wrestling, he's mentioned a whole lot. I was just having a conversation about Rick with, I can't even remember who it was. I was just having a conversation about him with some people. You know what I'm saying? I can't remember who it was now. But we were talking. That's what I'm talking about. What Chris Cruz. I can't even remember that. You know how you talk to so many guys in different places, and the Rick Rude subject was. I can't remember who I was having a conversation with. It was two or three of us, but I can't remember who it was.
I asked to his daughter recently, and she actually wanted to come on. We're going to do a tribute show. It didn't work out. It was a holiday weekend. But utmost respect to Rick Rude, to his, obviously, condolences to his family on the 20-year anniversary of his death, untimely death. Any human being that passes away before his time, complete tragedy. And one of the great things about Rick Rude, too, as well, prior to even getting into the pro wrestling business, was one of the best arm wrestlers.
Exactly.
In the world. Yeah. Just from what I hear.
Yeah, Rick had a bunch of, what we call, where I'm from, wrestle strength.
Right.
You know?
Right.
But, you know, back in his younger days, man, there were stories where he loved to fight. He loved to go to bars and fight.
Sure.
Beat up guys and stuff like that, man. So, but
always
a cool guy. I don't know, man. That's just, I don't know, man. It's so cold. That's how they, I mean, when you're out ice fishing for 8 months, I guess you want to beat people up when the warm weather comes back around. I have no idea, man.
That's a good analogy as I've heard, though. The weather, the ice, it kind of riles you up. Yeah.
I think it does, man. But
the only two things that can warm you up when you're really just like living in a sub-degree weather type climate would be sex and fighting. I mean, I've
never lived in that kind of climate. Just visited it, and just visiting it for a short period of time make me want to start fighting somebody. So,
what's the coldest place you've lived in, Stevie?
Coldest place I've lived?
I mean, not just.
Well, I've only lived in the climate of which I'm right now, but I visited. Oh my God, I've been in Germany when it was, I don't know how many degrees below zero. I've been in Minnesota and that Wisconsin area when it was, you know, I don't know how colder than I've ever felt before. Stuff like that in that Chicago area and Cleveland.
What does Stevie Ray do when he's living, like, is he kind of like, back in the 90s, was it like a blockbuster night, or would you go out regardless of the weather?
Here where I am, you know, cold is 40 degrees.
Right.
45, that's cold. You know?
Sure.
So that's, hell, I can ride my motorcycle year round, unless every now and then it'll get a day where it's freezing late at night or something like that. But basically most of the time, and the majority of the years, hell, I can ride my motorcycle year round.
Right.
Because that's really not cold. That's really not cold in other areas. It's cold for this part of the country, but in other areas of the country, that's really not 40-something degrees. It's really not cold.
Well, let's take you somewhere, obviously, down in Texas. It doesn't matter where it is, but let's say you're driving, it just rained, it's muddy, you're on your motorcycle. Ivanka Trump sticks out her thumb. She's hitchhiking. Do you give her a ride, or do you just blow mud in her face?
Hey, I'd give her a ride.
You would? Okay.
Yeah, like I told you before, man, I don't give two craps about politics, man.
Yeah.
I give a crap about people.
Sure. Sure.
And Ivanka Trump ain't never did anything to me. And if she needed help, I'm going to help her. If, you know, so at the end of the day, I'm not one of these guys that reaches across the aisle and all that. I don't believe in it. like I said before,
historically speaking, is there a historical figure from your past that would be in that situation if they were sticking their thumb out, you would easily, without thinking twice, kick some mud in their face? Hoover.
Nah, man, I probably would help anybody.
That says a lot about you. It says a lot about you.
I probably would help anybody, because if he was on the road and needed help, then somebody of historical figure from history probably wouldn't be in the position that he would be historically known from.
That's actually a deep thought. I agree with that. Yeah. That's actually
because if he was someone that we've read about and had done a lot of horrible things in life, then he wouldn't need my help.
Sure. I agree with you. Is there anything particularly these days right now, before we delve into some of the historical topics that we usually do, anything that's kind of grinding your gears right now, anything that's bothering you that's happening today?
Yeah, man. I mean, everything bothers me, man. Yeah, everything bothers me, man, because I see how things go full circle, and I see how everything is controlled, and I see how the government controls people's minds and controls people's emotions, so on and so forth. And we as people are like sheep, and we believe everything we're told. That bothers me. That bothers me, some of the things that go on in my community that are put in such a way that, we're not able to, get traction and come up from it. So education bothers me, you know what I'm saying? Just social injustice in general bothers me, man. So everything that I see in the world today bothers me. Social media bothers me. The mainstream media bothers me. Everything bothers me.
Now, a lot of it is philosophical, because you mentioned something about a couple of minutes ago as it pertains to people allowing themselves to be brainwashed. I think there are two types of people who are brainwashed: those who allow themselves to be brainwashed, and those who obviously have no choice and are brainwashed because of their mental capacities or lack thereof. And that's not to knock anybody, but there are two types of brainwashed individuals. The more dangerous ones are the ones who are just content and accept what the media unleashes upon the masses. I think we've been deprogrammed in a sense. We've been programmed to assume that life exists on our iPhone and that our news exists on our Wikipedia page. We can pretty much just put everything in a nice little bow and ribbon and get our news fix from Wikipedia. And as a result, the dumbing down of this country has probably never seen the amount of dumbing down that it has in the last 5 or 6 years. And it's getting worse, right?
Well, it's going to have to get worse. Can't get better.
No, it can't get better.
Nothing ever gets better.
This has nothing to do with politics or history, but it's something I've been wanting to ask you for a while. From a moral standpoint, what are your thoughts based on divorce rates being as high as they've been? Divorce rates are through the roof right now. And it's not just a domestic issue, it's a global issue.
Yes. Yes, because, if you think about it, a lot of people get married for what?
Right.
They say they get married for love. But if you don't know how to love someone, how are you going to know how to be married to someone? If you don't know what marriage consists of, how are you going to do it? If you don't know if you're qualified or at the level mentally to be married, how are you going to stay married? So as far as I'm concerned, marriage is just another way for this government to keep tabs on people. Because it's easy to get married, and I think the government wants people to be married. Because look how much money it costs you to get married. Virtually nothing. Take a blood test.
Absolutely.
Take a HIV test, go down in front of a magistrate, a judge, a captain, airplane captain, a ship captain, whoever is ordained to marry someone. They say a few words and you're married. Now you won. Now your insurance can cover them, their insurance can cover you, blah, 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 same address, can file taxes together, so on and so forth, and all hunky-dory. At the end of the day, but when you say I want to get a divorce, it costs you an arm and a leg, and you might not have nothing at the end of the day.
Right now, do you feel
now,
like is it
now with that being said, if I have to go to school and study to learn how to drive,
okay.
If I have to go to school and study to learn how to do anything in this society, in some way, shape, or form, you got to take a test for them to know if you're good enough, smart enough, knowledgeable enough to do it except for getting married. Anybody ever thought about that?
I have, but subconsciously.
You know why? Because if I train you to do something and you do it, then policy of divorce would not exist.
So is a lot of it fear, preconditioned notions of what may happen in our future?
What I'm saying is this. Preach marriage as much as you possibly can. Make people get married as much as you possibly can, because at the end of the day, you're making money off all of them.
Right. So you're telling me even the sanctimony of marriage under the umbrella of capitalism?
Yes. Yes.
I honestly...
Because like I said, does anybody ever talk about or educate people on what marriage really is and what it consists of? No.
You have to believe, though, in terms of the grassroots movement, when you live in a certain community or a certain area, regardless of where it is, it could be middle America, it could be in any of the bigger cities, it could be rural America. You do feel that it should be a philosophy or an ideology that comes from within. It shouldn't be something that's done, or in terms of even just the fear of walking the plank. I think a lot of it has to do with not just the fact that right now we're living in a two-income family society, whereas up until 25 years ago, in certain states, not all, a single-income family up until 1995, 37 of the 50 states could get by with a single-income family. Right now, it's getting tougher and tougher. Middle America just got hit extremely hard.
I think that's a part of it. But all those things should be discussed before you get married. That's what I'm talking about. The education of marriage.
Right. People might be mistaken.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people think marriage actually cures things and helps things. It actually doesn't. Everything elevates when you get married.
You're right about that. And I'm not saying
if you don't know that,
but I've been down the plank 3 times, and I can agree with that. I really can.
Really can. So if you don't know that, the only way you can find out is to get married, and then when all hell breaks loose, what is the first thing you want to do? I want to get the hell out of here.
Sure.
Whereas at a different time, at a simpler time, when things went bad, you worked it out.
So, in essence, distractions are making it tougher. The economy's making it tougher. The agreement, I guess, when you look at the pattern of as generations go by, acceptance as to the routine is something that's ingrained in our system as well. It's ingrained.
If you see people, most of your friends have been divorced.
Yep.
And most of the people you know, that maybe not your friends, colleagues, whatever, have been divorced, then divorce is in your mind, whether you want it there or not. That's the way out.
I can agree.
That is the way out.
Well, someone I spoke to, a film executive, I actually spoke to him the other day for a major studio. I won't mention his name, but he actually spoke about this with me in length. A couple of other people were there as well on the dinner table, and he had mentioned something interesting. We all have the desire, especially in this country, to make something of ourselves, wherever that may be.
Yeah.
And now it's become such a widespread epidemic, simplicity is no longer in our vocabulary, that both genders aspire to become something, and lost in the shuffle is the sanctimony of marriage.
Yes, because when women now have been fighting for their acceptance, to make as much money as men, to be put on the same level as a man, to run corporate jobs, so on and so forth, that's sitting back. I'm equal to you now. Whereas a lot of women, and I'm not trying to say this in a disparaging way,
sure,
a lot of women feel as though I'm just as equal to a man and I really don't need you. I just want you.
Right.
It's different.
Right. And when you say want, do you mean just physical desire?
No, I'm just saying, when things get bad, I can walk away from this and still do good also.
Right.
I want to be married, but I'm not gonna sit here and take all this, whatever we're going through, like some women would years ago.
Sure.
So see you, and I wouldn't want to be you.
Do you feel that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication?
I'm not sure. I'm not 100% sure on that. But I think it does. I think it does have its place.
25 years ago on this day, Richard Milhouse Nixon passed away.
Oh, man. Nixon was one of my favorite presidents.
Yeah. You've given me mixed messages, but here's why I like it. Let me finish here. The reason why I like it is because you've been able to give me pros and cons, and that's what I love, and I think that's what people need to hear. There's shades of gray. Everyone looks for a black and white answer. You can love a president, but disagree with some of his policies, and you've been able to do that. And you've been very in-depth about why you both liked him and disliked him as a president.
Right.
What's in terms of policy? What were you a fan of in terms of his administration?
I mean, just to me, when a president goes out of his way to cheat, I kind of admire that.
He goes out of his way to cheat.
Yeah.
To the
And,
point
we're gonna get a one-up on the competition,
And he did it before he was even elected office.
Right. So I'm like, that dude got some cojones, And
to those who really they need to listen to our last couple of episodes where we delved in depth about some of Nixon's stuff. One thing we didn't speak about was, and I know I spoke to Stevie twice last week for hours over the phone, and my jaw dropped, and I need to say this on air. My jaw dropped as to just the complexity of level of interest that you have and understanding, because I've never encountered probably anyone in my entire life. I've been around different types of people in the broadcast community, the teaching community, in different walks of life. You definitely have your finger on the pulse when it comes to just topical information, but also historical, and that's not blowing smoke up your ass. One of the things, though, I think we didn't talk about regarding Richard Nixon was he had a younger brother who died, and as a result, he was coddled. He was coddled as a child. He wasn't even allowed to play sports. He was forbidden to play sports. They found he had a family history of tuberculosis. A lot of people eventually thought that maybe he would, die of pneumonia. And the reason why I'm getting into all this is because he always had a singular fear that he wasn't going to receive respect from people, and that carried over to his career as a politician.
Yes.
He wanted to earn everyone's respect by any means necessary.
Let me go to show you, man, even people that are president has flaws. And they could be mental flaws, and not the most socially gifted person in the world, even though he has to get up there and act as though he is. But at the end of the day, even our presidents are human beings.
Right. That's a good
point. Some better than others, some worse than others, but hey, that's the luck of the draw. It's just like playing poker.
Right.
Sometimes it's the luck of the draw, man. Sometimes it's just that deck is with you, and sometimes that deck isn't.
When it comes to social injustice, Richard Nixon was actually very progressive and had a very good relationship with Martin Luther King Jr. prior to the first time he ran in 1960. A lot of people don't know that. Now, again, a lot of it has to do with climate and upbringing. Richard Milhouse Nixon he didn't grow up in a segregated area.
What president did?
Who grew up in a desegregated area have different experiences as it comes to different ethnic groups that they were around. Richard Nixon had no qualms about the civil rights movement being pushed forward. Actually, had he gotten elected in 60, probably would have progressed a lot quicker.
Perhaps.
Most likely.
Perhaps.
He was just caught in the vacuum of, they say when a president is doing horribly in the polls domestically, his next line of attack strategically is to hop on a plane and solve a foreign policy problem.
Yeah, at least he gave it a shot.
What's that?
I said at least he gave it a shot. I didn't see LBJ giving it a shot.
Right.
I see him just escalating something that was inevitable.
Absolutely. Yes, that's a good way of putting it, actually. That's a good way of putting it. He escalated something that was inevitable. You've always said that. You've been consistent about that.
Come on, man. The guys that got him where he was, he had to take care of them, bro.
Yeah, you're right.
Come on, man. You know, him and Jay Edgar Hooper, him and Jay Edgar. What was that?
Well, I mean, for anyone assuming that we have nothing nice to say about LBJ, there is one really compliment that you paid him. He was a pimp.
Look, bro. Come on, man. When you can have your boy murder someone and then get him off, okay? That's a pimp game, dog.
That's going to be something reoccurring that we always bring up. That's going to be our thing now.
You know, when your boy Malcolm Wallace can commit murder for you and he doesn't go to jail, that's what we call juice, bro.
Yeah, you're right.
Juice.
Not to be
everything that goes down. Huh?
Not to be confused with Jews. Juice.
That's juice, man. You know what I'm saying?
You know who's got some juice, Stevie? You know who's got some juice?
Who's that?
He's been wanting to get involved in these, and he's been amazing as a co-host as well. We got Jarrell T. Williams on the line over here.
Okay.
Hey, what's
going on, Jarrell?
Hey, what's going on, Stevie? I finally got in a little earlier, so I'm not diving in at the last second.
Well, good.
Well, I got to tell you, the two of you guys, especially during the end segment that we had about Kaepernick, probably were a sizable reason as to why we received an amazing surge in our last episode. The Kaepernick topic was probably something that I feel didn't quite end, but you both made your points. And I applaud both of you for sticking by your side. It was interesting that you had the same philosophy but different ideologies about it.
No, I appreciate you for saying that. I mean, we'll never know what Stevie Ray's the draw here, so. But if I contributed a little bit to it, I'd appreciate it. Yeah.
My pretty much my whole thought process on Colin Kaepernick is a thought process that comes from within and what I've been and what I've seen in people I know. Yeah. Not from anything I've been hearing people preach on television.
Yeah, of course.
Right. Because in that aspect, a lot of people got opinions, but a lot of people's opinions are curved by who they play for, and I'm not talking about team, but who they get paid from.
Yeah. And
a lot of people try to take things and hijack them with opinions, and you get so many opinions that you can start leaning one way or another, this, that, and the other, and taking things out of context. And that's what I don't like. Just like the little chick from The Blaze, Tommy Lauren, what's her name?
Right. Yep. We spoke about that actually earlier, I remember. Yep.
Yeah. Just like, you know what I'm saying? People like that to me, and people like a Laura Ingraham, they're prostitutes. I got more respect for the chick on the corner sucking dicks for a living than I have for them.
Right.
Wow.
Because at least...
that off air. Why is that? We never actually spoke on air about Laura.
Because at least their opinions, at least the chick on the corner, I know why she's doing what she's doing. You're getting paid to do what somebody wants you to do and come up with an opinion that's pretty much served to the people that's ill-informed or that have a prejudicial way of looking at things anyway.
Independent.
And that's why I call you
today, right?
Excuse me. And that's why I call them prostitutes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what you are. You're whoring yourself for a living because you know you can't believe in something that deeply and then expound on it on national television.
Well, I'm going to play devil's advocate. Let's do some role-playing. We haven't done role-playing ever. Come on. I'm Laura Ingraham over here, and I'm telling you know what, Stevie? I'm not going to do voices. We don't do voices over here. We're mature. Stevie, I completely disagree with you because I have a right to my own opinion. Regardless if you think it's my programming director's point of view, this is my point of view. I was allowed to get on my soapbox and vent as to what I felt. about certain issues. We talked about the LeBron James issue. I said what I felt. Why can't I say what I feel? Maybe your opinion doesn't view me the way you do, but that's your opinion.
Well, I'm like this. Have your opinion, but don't be surprised if someone like myself says what I say about you.
If that was your opinion to begin with.
And that's my opinion.
Right, but why? What's your opinion universally? How do you challenge my way of thought? What's wrong with what I said, in your opinion?
Well, which one are you talking about, Colin Kaepernick or you look how? Let me tell you something. If Lori Ingham was as powerful as she thinks she is, why didn't she come after LeBron James other than saying, well, just shut up and dribble? Why didn't they come after LeBron James the same way they did Colin Kaepernick? You know why? And LeBron James called the president an idiot.
Yeah.
Colin Kaepernick didn't say anything about the president.
Right.
And he doesn't have a job. You know why? Because LeBron James got juice. And you better know your beans from your cornbread.
That's the theme of the day today, juice.
You better know your beans from your cornbread before you go after him.
Yeah. Sure.
It's the easy target. Like they know going after LeBron is a losing battle. Like,
they're
not gonna it's easier to pick on this guy, who nobody really knows just yet, and he doesn't have a following.
So how authentic is your opinion then?
Exactly.
Well, I mean,
if it was even her opinion.
Do you guys feel like in terms of juice right now, everything that we're watching in terms of just protocol has gone out the window? We've talked about policies. We've talked about the Oval Office. We've talked about, let's get topical over here. Specifically, with Rudy Giuliani, the intention for Donald Trump was to actually, in terms of a man who had juice, 15 to 18 years ago, I don't think there was a man in the U.S. who had more juice than Rudy Giuliani.
That's debatable. But go ahead.
Well, maybe he didn't pull the wool over your eyes or mine. But let's talk. Remember, we don't represent this country.
That's true.
We may be voice of the voiceless, but we don't represent the country. Now, at a certain point, you can say Rudy Giuliani had more juice. And even going back to the 80s, with the way he handled the mob, you can say that this guy had an absolute ton of juice. Would you feel that it was miscalculated? It was probably a miscalculated step for Trump to assume that if Rudy Giuliani gets any kind of a forum or podium to speak and vent and give Trump the rub, that the wool will be pulled over our eyes again? Do you think that was the intention? Because I feel like Giuliani was brought on part due to the fact that, again, if we look at the polls, the guy was universally popular amongst Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals. Miscalculation on Trump's part?
Man, I'm going to give you my honest opinion. And I mean this. I don't know how anybody would even want to associate themselves with Rudy Giuliani.
Explain.
This is the same guy that when 9/11 happened, just happened not to be in his lair that day. This is the same guy that told the first responders that it was okay to go down to ground zero. This is the same guy that out of thousands of people right now are dying from cancers they've never seen before. This is the same guy that the New York Fire Department wanted to have nothing to do with. Nothing to do with. So when you talk about Rudy Giuliani, why would anybody want to associate themselves with this crook? This guy is okay, what was his right-hand man?
Right.
His right-hand man. Bernie Kirk?
Yes.
A crook who went to prison. Right or wrong?
You're right.
And that's your right-hand man that you were trying to get a job.
Yeah. At a time, yeah.
You were trying to get a job as one of the guys over the what was that? What was the new thing that came after 9/11? The office of what is it called? The office of Motherland. What is it? First Land. What's it called?
So I get the point. I just want to take it back, and we'll get into that in a minute. But I want to get to one point.
Homeland Security. You wanted him to be over Homeland Security.
Homeland Security. Okay, so here's my point of contention with that. If we're going to bring it back to 9/11, we can see a lot of people. There were a lot of profiteers. There were a lot of profiteers who took off quicker than a rocketeer when 9/11 occurred. It saved a lot of political careers.
Who was the mayor, though? I mean, okay then. So I'm talking about the guy that was in charge.
Well,
and you run around with a crook, and you told bald-faced lies.
Right, but here's what
and nobody forgets that.
Well, that makes him a politician. That was my point. I mean, he's running around with a crook.
No. But you got people killed.
Yeah.
You got people killed domestically. That is why Rudy Giuliani has never made traction since. Because the whole state of New York doesn't give a damn about it.
I wanted you to put this on a scale for me. Put this on a scale.
You're right about that.
Wait, I want you both to put this on a scale for me. His work as Attorney General prior to 9/11, prior to him actually serving as
wait a minute, brother. Let me stop you right there. No. Let me stop you right there. You asked me a question. I went back to 9/11. Anything prior to that, that's not what I'm talking about. And if anybody looks at that, everything that happened in 9/11 trumps that.
Then I would say that you're cherry picking.
I might be. And that might be satisfactory for you. What he did as to going after the mob, this, that, and the other, that's your job.
Yeah.
When you
don't get a.
Yeah, that's your job. It ain't like you did it for free.
That's what we put him in office to do, apparently. Instead, he spent half.
So you do your job, know your job, and do your job. How hard is that?
I'm playing devil's advocate. I'm saying let's look at someone's life as a book. There are different.
No. I'm sorry, brother.
About this particular chapter in this man's life.
And that's the last chapter. So as of right now, as it comes up to him, being with if you think Trump put him out there, he's a good mouthpiece, and he thinks people have forgotten about what I'm talking about, but they haven't.
Yeah.
The news might not bring it up, but they haven't. They know he's a crook.
New York.
Are you telling me that a Time Person of the Year should be shunned the way that you're shunning it? A former Time Person of the Year, Stevie.
Man, do you know Adolf Hitler made the cover of Time too?
Yes.
Forgot about that?
Yes, I
forgot about that.
Yeah, but he didn't get an honorary knighthood.
I'm not comparing. You brought up the magazine. I'm just telling you certain people that's been on it.
You're right about that. You're right about that.
I'm not comparing.
What are your thoughts about Giuliani? You're a New Yorker. I mean, you remember all this. And might add, you're not a spring chicken either, Jarrell. You've been around.
I ain't got no words for the man because, I mean, around the time that he was mayor, when I was coming up, he was the epitome of, I don't even want to say stop and frisk because that's being nice about it. He basically...
Yeah, you forgot about that?
He gave the New York City Police Department an open invitation to basically do whatever the hell they wanted.
Forgot about that.
What I didn't forget though is his first year in office, the police task force, in terms of just their numbers, jumped up, increasing from 32% to 65% around the city.
Okay, task force for what?
Taxation was down 26%.
What was that again?
Taxation was down. Ethnic groups of people who were never allowed into the police department, just based on protocol and testing, all of a sudden passed entrance exams under his watch because he wanted to make sure that people on the streets at least had proper representation in terms of the police officers. No longer was the same ethnic groups, the same class group of cops visible in New York City. Is that not a point?
Yeah, no, because that's complete bullshit. And if he did allow them, if he did allow them to take the test so they can get into the police force, it was only to mask the fact that he was letting people get killed out here for no reason.
But you're making these claims. Give me something specific that I can hang my hat on.
Well, shoot, there's a bunch of situations.
Give me one.
The Sean Bell situation.
Okay, what about it?
That was justified in the mayor's office. The man got killed the night of his bachelor party. And when the police officers decided to open fire without asking questions, they killed him because the bullets that they were firing towards them were ricocheting back at them, and they thought they tried to claim they were being fired at.
Okay.
Which
so
is
here's
why
the
they,
thing.
which is why
Slippery
they,
slope.
and
slippery slope.
Yeah.
What it is with any elected politician of any office, of any type, when he stands behind something so firmly and is made to be a fool of, they have two choices: denounce his affirmations or defend them. And when politicians decide to defend them, it doesn't mean that morally or internally that's how he feels. It means that they have a vested interest to keep and maintain their office, whether we agree with it or not.
Yeah, but that's why nobody's.
And we have a vested interest as citizens to hold his feet to the fire, which means he probably had another agenda. He probably had another agenda if he hired more African American police officers. Because what you have to realize is this, Avi, just because a black guy has a blue suit on, don't mean he's still a black guy.
Explain it.
That's true.
Because once they get in the club, you know what you got to do to stay in the club.
Yep. Then it becomes like, oh.
So if that means selling out your own community, they would do that. So don't give me that crap about hiring more black officers and it made us safer. No, it didn't.
I'm playing devil's advocate.
They're pirates just like the rest of them. Pirates. Right. And you know what a pirate is.
Mm-hmm.
Believe that. I know it for a fact.
And then for all these magical minority police officers that got jobs, I mean, I live in Far Rockaway, Queens, which is right next to Long Island. I still see pairs of white cops going all over the neighborhood, and these are people that don't even know anything about my neighborhood.
Exactly.
And they're out here patrolling my neighborhood.
Yeah. And I'm agreeing with you.
I've never seen them. You can't take old retired high school football players from deep in Long Island, give them a badge, and then drop them in the middle of Brooklyn.
No, but you also can't do what David Dinkins did, African American mayor of New York City. You can't neglect people who are looking up to you based on the fact that they're the same race as you. Let's be honest here. When people are looking up to you, leadership.
But we're not talking about. We're not talking about David Dinkins. We're talking about Giuliani. How did Dinkins get into this?
Because we're speaking about his predecessor. So if we're talking
No. You speaking about his predecessor.
Well, how do we compare?
Well, no, I wasn't comparing him to somebody else. You are. You asked me about him as it relates to Donald Trump.
Right.
So I'm not. So I got to talk. I got to go all the way back to Mel Kopp.
If we've organically now made the conversation about his credentials as mayor, let's remember that his predecessor
as it pertains to today. Okay. I was chronicling him as everything that he did from mayor to when he was prosecutor and all the way up to today. That's what I was talking about. Now, if you want to talk about Dinkins, if you want to talk about Mel Koch and all these other guys, all the way back to whoever. What was the guy's name? The guy with the magazine. You want to talk about them? We can talk about them. But the subject today is this punk.
Yeah.
The subject today is this punk, this pussy. What about that?
Well, if Rudy Giuliani had a chance to run for office, which he did try twice unsuccessfully, I actually feel that 4 years ago his time was up. But here's what I'm talking about. From a morale standpoint, it's a question. It's not a statement. It's a question to both you guys. And I'm playing devil's advocate, so I'm getting everything I want to hear out of both of you. I'm trying to push some buttons in case anyone's listening, because to be honest with you, if we're going to sit here and agree on everything, let's just cancel the show. Now, my feeling is this, from a morale standpoint, how important it is for a person during a crisis, a national crisis, to be the embodiment of a city, be a spokesman of a city. The easy answer you're going to give me is, well, it's a costume that a person wears. We know that. It's a politician. Let's get over that. We know that politicians are not sincere people. We're not kids. We're not 10 years old over here in this panel. We're all intelligent guys. That's why we're speaking about this. My question, though, is from a morality standpoint, how important is it to have a figurehead being able to raise and lift morale during a difficult time, even if it serves him well, even though he did it because it obviously, politically speaking, served him well at the time. It's important to have somebody like that. We've had leaders of this country that pretty much told everyone to either go to Canada at certain parts in this history of the country that we are in right now, or spend a ton of money less, spend a lot less money than you usually are, because I can't fix the problem. We've had presidents literally because of their low morale, have other presidents come in, step into their chair, into the Oval Office, and the slippery slope began because the propaganda machine can only work when someone doesn't raise morale. When despair is at its height, propaganda is at its height as well. And somebody is able to always feed off of that, not just in this country. That's my point. My point is Giuliani, from a morale standpoint, meant a lot to the city at the time during the 9/11 attacks. Can you argue that?
It did, but it only lasted a short period of time.
Yeah, I mean, like, that's like, first of all, anybody at the time who stood up and spoke in a time of crisis for a short period of time will get a following.
Not true.
Like
Gerald Ford. I can name you 5 guys off the list. Hubert Humphrey, Gerald Ford, J. Edgar Hoover, who wasn't even a president, Benjamin Franklin at one point, and Thomas Jefferson. All were shit on.
Okay, check this out. Hold on a second. Check this out.
Let's not use the word everybody or everything so loosely. That's one of my pet peeves. Everyone seems to want to use the word everything and all the time loosely without knowing that word it's universal. It's eternal. We can't just lump it up to one nice word.
Let's get back to your boy Giuliani, okay?
Yes, please.
Let's get back to this step, okay?
Yeah.
9/11 happened. I don't care what mayor was in office at that time. Everybody was rallying around the situation at hand. That situation brought people together like no other. Right. He just happened to be the mayor at the time and tried to take advantage of it and politicize it like he does with everything else.
Yes.
But once people start to figure out what he was about, what he did, what you lied about, why wasn't he in his lair in the headquarters in Building 7 where they built all that stuff at?
Right.
For him to oversee a crisis. Why wasn't he in that building?
Why wasn't Giuliani in the building?
Yes. That's why he had the headquarters built there.
He had to lift the spirit of New Yorkers, that's why.
No. He never was in it the whole day. That building wasn't hit by anything. He knew he didn't supposed to be in that building. And he testified that he was told that building was going to come down. How do you defend that?
Do you believe that, Stevie?
Yes. What do you mean do I believe it? It's chronicled.
Yeah, do you believe what's chronicled, Stevie?
Yes.
Yeah, he said it.
He talked in front of Congress and said, I was told that the building was going to come down. Who told him that?
And even if they just pushed him out there to take the fall, like somebody.
There's no way any engineer, anybody that builds buildings, just because the building was on fire, is going to know that building is going to fall in 7 to 10 seconds.
You just answered my question, which was, do we hold him accountable? That was other words that I was mentioning. This was not a local crisis, Stevie. Jarrell just said something really interesting in the 2 seconds he said it. If he was the fall guy, he sure took the fall.
He wasn't no fall guy. He was a stupid guy because he got there and said the wrong thing. He shouldn't have never said it. So in essence, you're feeding on the simple fact that you were in on something that's not being told. And that's why people don't trust him anymore. And that's why nobody voted for him anymore when he ran for president. And that's what he was going to try to use 9/11 to make myself look like the big Superman that saved New York, that shot King Kong off the Empire State Building. Everybody vote for me. But you know what? They say no. You run around. No. You run around with a crook named Bernie Carrick.
Every politician runs around with a crook or an army of crooks.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But we don't know they're crooks. We knew this guy was a crook because everything came out.
Right. But how many times have we heard people in office? How many times have we heard people in office either
I'm not talking about other people right now. You can keep doing that, bro. I'm not doing that. I'm only talking about this guy. We can talk about politicians from here back to the 1700s. That don't mean anything. Today we're talking about this guy. We're talking about Rudy Giuliani. So if you want to make a case for him by using other people and what they've gone through, that's fine. But I'm not going to expound on that because it's futile. It doesn't make any sense. Well, let's talk about this guy. Let's talk about this guy. Now he gets up in front of television and want to defend Donald Trump. Because that's what he is. He's a lawyer by trade.
Okay. So he's doing
so why would anybody believe him?
Paid to do, correct? He's doing.
Why would anybody believe him? You lied about everything, which means you have no credibility.
So you feel that his lack of credibility today has everything to do with 9/11?
Yes, recent credibility.
Recent lack of credibility.
Yes.
Interesting.
So
now, when I kept mentioning that the floodgates were open, and here's what I was trying to get at, and I was systematic about this, but we always tried to delve into 9/11, except we do it organically over here on Wrestling with History. 9/11 is a topic that we've always wanted to delve into, and organically, I'm glad that we have. That was my intention, and I'm glad that you were riled up enough to speak passionate about the topic, because to be honest with you, Stevie, and Jarrell knows me really well, I'm not just saying this, I agree with every word you said about the bastard.
Well, when it comes to Rudy Giuliani, if you don't believe me, talk to the New York City Fire Department.
Rudy Giuliani, let's talk. Now that I'm not playing devil's advocate because it was a role that I was playing, Rudy Giuliani, legitimately, under his clock, under his watch, there were 7,450 reports of vandalism on the site of One World Trade Center. Half of those were reported by civilians who had witnessed fire people and cops looting and stealing under Giuliani's watch. Under Giuliani's watch. That's not to tarnish law enforcement. It's not to tarnish. Really, the real heroes were the fire department and police officers that were on the scene, first responders. But if we're going to talk about some of the negative things that happened under Giuliani's clock, one of them was the fact that he also completely destroyed the fabric of New York, which was the mom and pop shops. How did he do that? Licensing corporate deals that weren't to take place until the year 2015. He did it in 1999. He did that because he was in a rush to make sure that on a global scale, if he can take New York back to the economic prosperity that it reached at the height of the 50s and 60s, and even the 20s, that he can use that as a springboard for a presidential campaign. And in essence, the mom and pop shops suffered as a result. They were guinea pigs. Regarding 9/11, you seem to feel, and I'm of the same opinion when we delved into it off the phone, off the podcast the other day, you seem to be the opinion that there's a lot that people may not be educated about as to the occurrences that took place early that morning, correct?
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely.
To be more specific, are we going to, do you feel that the attacks themselves were a little bit strange in terms of just some of the occurrences that took place?
Whenever 50,000 things happen on the same day and none of them make sense, something is wrong.
So
something is wrong.
Weren't some cars destroyed and some unblemished in that area, Stevie?
Yes. You know, when an airplane can crash in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, but nobody sees the plane, nobody sees the crash, there's no plane there, nobody's there, something is wrong. When an airplane can fly into the side of a Pentagon and it leaves a hole the size of a garage door, no wings or anything like that, and at ground level, never touch the ground, something is wrong.
Yeah, like nobody detected that.
Something is wrong. I mean, when some young kids do an independent investigation of the Pentagon airplane crash, and everything that the commission told us, how the plane came across, what level it was flying, how fast it was flying, what path that the plane took, and these guys do an independent investigation, and everything that the commission says is totally different from every witness that they interviewed. Something is wrong. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
When two buildings, two of the biggest buildings on Earth and the top three buildings on Earth that have been, 110 stories, 110 stories.
Something shady either happened or the laws of gravity.
When somebody tells me that jet fuel made steel columns melt so a building comes straight down, and jet fuel, the majority of it is kerosene. Jet fuel is kerosene. You know that?
Yep. Go ahead.
Kerosene can barely burn glass. But you told me it melted steel. Well, jet fuel ain't never did that before, since, or ever. And you want me to believe this?
That's something that no one ever speaks about. Everything you just mentioned right now in the last 5 minutes never gets any airplay whatsoever.
Something is wrong.
Sure.
So if that's the case, why do we hire people and they spend thousands and thousands and thousands and they have to go to school and study how to do demolition to make a building fall within itself so we can come in here and move all this stuff out and build something else on this land? Why don't we just put some kerosene on it and boom, there it is.
Right.
Save a lot of people a lot of money.
But if you looked at even the detonation, it seemed to detonate before impact, if you take a close look. The first tower.
How does concrete that we drive on, walk on, build on every day turn to dust?
Ballistic missiles could do the job, Stevie.
Ballistic missile?
Yep.
Can turn concrete to dust.
I'm being sarcastic. Ballistic missiles.
You got to be being cautious. You know, I mean,
Stevie, did you hear John Ashcroft during the hearings?
John Ashcroft.
Yeah. When he brought up ballistic missiles and he was almost laughed out of the room by reporters.
No, I don't think I saw that one.
Yeah, well, it seemed like every answer on earth was proposed at some point. And it was preposterous because when you read the transcript from some of the Senate hearings that took place, the one question that wasn't asked wasn't so much even the climate around the towers, pedestrians, cars that you mentioned. The one thing that wasn't mentioned at all was the motive. Nobody ever speaks about the motivation for the 9/11 attacks. People want to talk about the controversy in terms of just what buildings collapsed first, how did they collapse, was it feasible, did the laws of gravity cease to exist that day? One thing that never gets discussed is the motive. I don't seem to think that, I think it's kind of interesting that we have some of the best intelligence in the world, but yet not one Saudi person that was linked to the attack was actually captured at that time. Kind of interesting how all the Iraqis were targeted as a point of escalation. Isn't that kind of interesting?
When you talk about 9/11, the thing is, the way I look at it, and I can just speak from that, whenever a government doesn't want you to talk about something, they're trying to hide something.
Yeah.
Because I think 9/11 should be, the 9/11 commission. How do you have a commission that doesn't even investigate Building 7? How do you do that?
Right.
That building fell down, but in the commission it doesn't even get talked about. How does that happen?
Or how about the FBI's denial that it had a role in approving the flights to begin with?
Yeah.
Role in what?
Hush money.
Why doesn't anybody on Fox News or anybody on MSNBC or anybody on CNN and all these other news talk about how many people are dying right now from cancers that they've never seen before?
Because there's no ratings in that.
Nobody cares about.
It wasn't even put into the Freedom of Information Act, actually.
Who grieves for those guys? Why doesn't anybody talk about that the NYPD, the NY Fire Department, New York Fire Department, that if any of those guys talk to the media, they have been threatened with insubordination, they have been threatened with losing their jobs and losing their pension. Why hasn't that been talked about?
Some of those guys actually who are sick and still reeling, they went to Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, because they realized that some of the terrorists had better medical than they did. Isn't that insane? Some of the terrorists that are stationed in Guantanamo Bay had better medical than they did.
And really Rodriguez, who actually worked in the first building, I think that was the North building or the South building, I can't remember. That stated he was in the building, and before the airplane hit the building, an explosion happened in the basement.
Right.
Right. According to plan.
An explosion in the basement happened before the airplane hit the building. Yep. Now why doesn't anybody talk about it? And when he got on television and said this for, I think, ABC, when it got to the part where he talked about the explosion underneath, they, some kind of way, took it out and made it seem like he said something else. Why would they do that?
What was the prerogative?
Close.
What was the prerogative?
Because apparently, why would you have to alter what he said or cut out what he said?
Right.
Yeah.
Why would you have to do that? The man is just simply stating, I work in this building, been working in this building for a zillion years. Actually, I was off today. He was actually come in that day. It was his off day. And by him being the guy, you know, I don't know if was a janitor or whatever. He's some kind of maintenance guy that's over everything in that building. So I got all the keys to everything. I got to come in and do something that my boss came in. I didn't even supposed to be here. So what I got to lie about?
Exactly.
But I got to help all these people get out of here. And their skin, people coming off the elevator and their skin's hanging off. And I don't even know what's going on. Then I hear a big boom, you know, at the top of the building. And I'm trying to get people out because something has got them, they blew their skin off. This man testified to that. And guess what? The 9/11 Commission didn't even talk to him.
The Senate Judiciary Committee listened to him, but they completely denied and looked at him as if he was insane.
Oh,
is that something?
Yeah, because the biggest problem is they don't want the truth to get out, and they think that by lying to us, it's making things better. And they never realize that if they tell us what's really going on, maybe we'll actually put our faith in them and trust them to lead this country.
Because I actually believe if the whole world really knew what happened that day, we would be living in a different country right now.
But I asked you guys a question. I want an answer. I have my own opinions, but it's not about my opinions right now. It's about yours.
What's that?
Both of you. What was the motive behind all of this? Behind the attacks? What was the motive? Domestically and in terms of internationally, what was the motive?
Okay, let me ask you. Let me say this.
Yep.
Let me say this. The FBI never put Osama bin Laden on the top.
10 most wanted list of people in America.
Yes, exactly. Why is that?
Not even in 93. Not even in 93.
Not even in 2001 or 2003.
But I bring up 93 as a segue to get into something that you also have a very, very interesting take on, which was the first attacks that took place in 93.
Right. That one wasn't big enough, though.
Of course.
That one,
once you bring down two of the most iconic buildings in New York City, when you tell the public, yeah, we're going to go over there and kick some ass, no one's going to argue with you.
Exactly.
But certainly,
and no one
Jarrell,
did.
my point is this, certainly, Jarrell, do people, and again, accountability as far as that, we've already done 3 or 4 of these shows, and we've always pretty much said that politicians and the world leaders that represent their own countries individually should be accountable from every scale. But here, I'm going to take a shift here and again play devil's advocate. At what point do people become part of the problem? People had their blinders on in 93 and said, well, the buildings didn't fall. It was a botch. Let's worry about something else. Let's worry about the Bulls winning their 3rd championship in a row. Let's worry about whatever's going on that has nothing to do with anything that would depress us. I think people put their blinders on, which we're enablers. We enable the government and our world leaders to pull the wool over our eyes.
Exactly.
Don't you agree with that?
I think you're right about that. But it's also like if our mainstream, okay, Bernstein and Woodward, okay?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They did everything in their power as 2 reporters for a newspaper and a little inside work from Deep Throat.
Yep.
To do what they did to bring down Richard Nixon.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, what if Bernstein and Woodward were still young guys in 2003? What if they were young guys like they were in 1973? And they got on this thing and they wouldn't get off. And they had a little inside help from someone. What would be the difference at these times than it was back in 1973? You know what the difference would be?
Tell me.
Bernstein and Woodward would be dead.
Is that why he spent more time than any other journalist interviewing W. Bush?
Who?
He wrote for Bob Woodward.
He did a lot of books. He did a lot of books about that. But right now that's not his job. He knows the real deal now. He's a young guy. He was a young guy back. Excuse me? He was a young guy back then. I'm trying to make a footprint for myself.
No, what I meant was, as he got older, he seemed to put himself, he was more in line. He checked himself more in line because, as you had mentioned, getting away with some of the stuff he did during the time of the Nixon scandal probably would subjugate him to death threats or even worse in today's society.
Of course. And my point is this. I'm really not talking about Bernstein or Woodward. What I'm talking about, the young reporters, investigative reporters today got way more tools to investigate today than those guys had way back then. But yet, not anybody that did anything either had to leave the country or that he got offed or he kept his mouth shut. Is that journalism? Is that freedom of the press? No, it isn't.
Well, I mean, to me, I think a lot of it, people seem to forget. A lot of the individuals that get into the field themselves may have already had the wool pulled over their eyes many times, and here's what I mean by that. By the time they realize that they're working for a machine and that it's no longer 1985 or 1975 or 65 and they're working for a machine, they probably realize that they got into the wrong field. And if they didn't, it's because right now they're getting paid more than any other time in any other era that any journalist, nationally at least, has. So in essence, they were the last, and just the one point I want to make here, the last vessel of integrity in terms of people that actually could make a difference were reporters, because they weren't in it for the money. Financial gain and financial prosperity wasn't something they were in for. There were a handful that maybe were, but for the most part they weren't. Especially the local news people. Now we live in an era where it's a race to the top. And the reason why is because, we talked about Rupert Murdoch earlier in one of our shows, but now that...
Okay, wait a minute, man. Wait a minute, bro. Wait a minute, man. Hold on a second, bro. What are you saying?
I'm saying that journalists have no integrity because they realize that there's a pot at the end of the rainbow, Stevie.
But what about the ones that don't think like that?
They don't have a job.
Exactly.
They don't have a job, Stevie.
Exactly. So what does that say about the integrity of all media?
Well, it's gone to hell, but the motivation is
exactly
the capitalist umbrella has been spread so wide at this point that it covers just about every field, even the last vestige of integrity, which was journalists. Even they've been sucked into the vacuum.
There are a lot of people out there that are independent investigators.
Sure, of course. Yeah, there are. There are
investigators.
Absolutely.
A lot of them that are independent investigators, and they sell to that. They're like hired guns for whoever pay them to do things.
I agree with that.
All of these people have been made to shut up.
Episode number 3 of Wrestling with History. We're going to get a little bit tough here. My opinion is this. Based on what I heard last time in our previous episode about your comments about Kaepernick, he didn't have an obligation to stand up and create a movement or even take it further than he did, because we knew that it wasn't about... The media twisted the situation. It was a narrative that suited them. We know that. But here's the parallel I'm going to make with Jordan and Kaepernick. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. It's just one man's opinion. I don't know it all. Sometimes I don't even know a little. But my opinion is this. When it comes to Kaepernick and Jordan, we're looking at two athletes over here that had a podium, that had a platform, that were on a pedestal to harp on some issues that maybe they wanted to. One did, one didn't. The other one chose to not even advance it any further. Is it fair to say that Kaepernick should be put in the same box as Jordan is for not making the issue that he first brought upon the national scene, pushing it above the media's head through his publicist, through the power that he has as celebrity, to just completely stay on track and mention that he was on to something until the media shut him up. He allowed himself to sit down and really just not explain what the real objective that he had was. Jordan never did. In that sense, can you put them both in the same box?
One has nothing to do with the other. There's no comparison. That's first and foremost. How you come to that, I have no unearthly idea.
They both didn't.
Colin Kaepernick, excuse me?
They both chose not to take a stance. Although Jordan
no. They both did. You got it all ass backwards, and I'm explaining to you why.
Tell me.
Colin Kaepernick, like we was talking about on the last show.
Yeah.
Silent protest. Silent protest. Not provoking anyone. You asked me a question about my protest, and everybody knows this country was built on protest. I answer your question about why I'm protesting, and everybody, I'm the first celebrity or so-called sports figure to expound on things that are happening in this country that nobody has a voice big as mine in sports right now. I ain't going to say it's big. A lot of people did, but nobody wouldn't do it. They say, okay, you ask me why I'm protesting? This is why I'm protesting. Now, with everybody else, as far as black leaders in this country, and even white people that agree with the narrative of which he was talking about, unarmed men being killed by police officers, unarmed young men being killed by police officers, and there's no recourse for them. And nobody has had a voice for them, and nobody cares. It's that simple. Now, with that being said, and if a whole country, a country that has no empathy, does not believe in that same thing, it's not an indictment on Colin Kaepernick, it's an indictment on this fucking country. And the very fucking people that look at that and turn it into something else and don't give a damn about it. That's an indictment on the fucking country.
What if somebody
that says that flag, and what that flag stands for. If that flag doesn't stand for the same thing for every single solitary person that is a citizen of the United States of America, then what the fuck is that flag up there for? Just a certain sector of people, apparently. Now, let me get to Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, who was the most famous athlete in the whole world. You know what he had that no other athlete had? He had juice. You know what juice is?
Yeah,
juice
stroke,
is power.
baby. He had stroke. Yep.
Okay? Juice is power. And when you got power, you can get shit done. And when you can get shit done, hey, sometimes that kind of power is just bestowed upon you. And just like Spider-Man's father told him, what did he tell him? With great power comes great responsibility.
Yep.
But you choose not. When you get that kind of responsibility, you choose not. And I'm not saying he should. I'm not saying he should, but when you put in that position,
I'm glad you
and you are a minority, and this can help your minority situation for millions of people come up and you choose not to, that is what I'm talking about. When you have a shoe,
times that in the past when we've spoken,
when you
again,
have a shoe,
that no one's obligated, right?
Now, when you have a shoe that people are actually killing themselves over, and the very company that represents you use that kind of heartache and misery to promote that shoe, I got a fucking problem with that.
Right. And you can't say Jordan didn't know that. I wasn't aware of that either.
I'm not saying he didn't know. And anybody that's got common back sense knows he knows.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But he wanted to protect his brand.
So that is why you still see today Michael Jordan and different people on different radio stations, TV stations, having this debate about who's the best between LeBron James because they have to keep his brand relevant.
Mm-hmm.
Guy ain't played in a zillion years, but they got to keep his brand relevant because we still selling this bullshit to you that's made in sweatshops in China. Who grieves for them? Who grieves for the mother who, son, I bought some sneakers for, but he got his fucking head blown off because he was walking down the street? Who grieves for them?
It's an interesting point you raised. I just don't agree with it.
I really didn't say it for you to agree with it. I really could do two shits who agree with it and who doesn't. It's real.
I respectfully disagree with you on that, and here's why. I think that right now, if you look at ratings across the board, they're as low as they can be, just in cable in general. And the reason why is because obviously people are more distracted. There's different platforms and devices that they have. There's more channels than ever. Yada, yada, yada. The point is, right now there has to be some sort of hot topic issue for sports fans to debate. And because of the fact that LeBron James hasn't been successful as much as people thought he would be in terms of just winning championships. He's led his team to the finals plenty of times. I think people want to drum up interest. And the barroom banter in sports has gone on for years. People used to debate who was better, Wilt or Russell in basketball, who was better on the ice, Lemieux or Gretzky. I mean, the debates just go on and on. But I think right now, when we've reached a certain point where LeBron James is the only guy in this era that people can legitimately compare to Jordan, no offense to Kobe Bryant, it's something that, universally speaking, can be promoted, and you know people will tune in when it's promoted to show up or be debated about on the top of the hour or the bottom of the hour, even if you're a casual fan. So I think it's more for a ratings pop than anything else, when, in essence, when those conversations come up.
You go look at each and every media outlet that drums up this conversation, and to leave Kobe Bryant out of it is actually criminal. You go and see how much Nike sponsors these media outlets.
Oh, they do. Of course they do.
Exactly. Because a lot of people, what you have to realize, is a new generation now. So you have to let them know who Michael Jordan was and what he did.
Okay.
Because people in the LeBron era, that's all they know.
Okay, but listen, before ESPN even came about, and the only way to get your fix was through news.
Let me before you continue, let me tell you something. Brother, I work in radio. I talk with people about this all the time. I know what I'm talking about. It's not an accident like you think it is. To the fans out there that listen, sound like an accident. But the best propaganda of sports in the history of mankind is Nike. They know what they're doing. Believe me.
But the point I was going to make was prior to Nike.
No. My thing to you is you think it's an accident and think it's done in general. That's true in certain cases, not in this one because it comes up too much every day.
Be it as it may.
It's already been, if it's already been argued, why is it still coming up? Because Nike wants it to come up.
Prior to Nike, prior to the internet, when you can get your sports fix on you have to read USA Today or local papers or go to the library or watch a couple of highlights regionally. Before the era of the internet was prevalent, before you could get widespread information, those debates existed all the time.
No, they didn't.
In fact,
Not like this.
When Jordan came into the league
in
85 and wore his Jordan 1s, there was a debate about whether or not he should wear those sneakers to begin with. But that's not even my point. My point was there was a debate already about whether or not this guy is going to be considered one of the best of all time. It happened. That's got
nothing to do with my point.
What I'm saying
that's got nothing to do with my point.
The barroom banter of comparing athletes has always existed, Stevie.
Yeah, but what I'm talking about is television, commercials.
Right.
When you push a narrative and you lose LeBron James, and LeBron James knows it. The people are starting to talk about, dog, I'm a sports guy. Been a sports guy for years.
Me too.
But if you don't think so, fine. But that argument, people had in the barroom, or, the barbershop argument for years. That's fine on all sports, not just basketball. But like I said, you look at every single solitary person that has played basketball in the past that were great players.
Right.
Do you know people don't even know that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is the highest scoring athlete in basketball ever, and a lot of people do a lot of people don't know he has 6 championships with 2 different teams?
One with Milwaukee.
Yeah, people forget.
Did you know that?
Yeah, he won one in 1971 with Milwaukee. He had Oscar Robertson and Bob Dandridge. I know my sport. Right. I'm with you, and you're right. The point you're making.
And Mickey Davis.
Yes,
a guard off the bench.
And Coach Costello. And Coach Costello, which most people don't even remember. Hubie Brown was the assistant coach of that team.
But what I'm saying is, that guy doesn't have a contract with Nike or Adidas and this, so nobody talks about him.
Now I could see your point, and here's why. You made an amazing comparison. I used to tell this to my students. If you're going to drum up a point and bring up a narrative, I will agree with you. And again, I'm not saying you need to get my agreement, but if I am going to just see what you're saying or where you're coming from, I need to have something valid that sticks. You didn't just throw stuff on the wall that didn't stick. You just brought up Lou Alcindor, who became Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and mentioned how this is the all-time leading scorer in NBA history. He won 6 championships with 2 different teams, and yet because of the fact that he's not sponsored by anybody, doesn't have a shoe deal, his name gets lost in the narrative.
And not only that,
I agree.
He's a Muslim. Yep. Not only that, He was very difficult to deal with.
Yep.
Because of his political beliefs and his religious beliefs.
Sure.
So they go out of their way to make sure this guy is not even talked about.
How can you explain the fact that a Bill Russell, who didn't have a shoe deal, is always thrown into the discussion? He was just, by the way, and as you know this as well, he was just as influential in the civil rights movement, just as outspoken. Russell was.
Let me ask you this. At the end of the day, when somebody wins the championship, who brings the trophy out?
The commissioner. The commissioner. Oh, you mean Russell presents the MVP award?
Yeah.
The MVP award, right. Finals MVP, yeah.
See what I'm saying? He still has a rapport with the NBA.
Yeah.
He still has a rapport with the NBA.
Kareem never coached, and I agree with I've always said this, Jarrell, about what Stevie's saying, and we usually spoken about it. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, I want to hear your point, but I'm saying Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has never coached. He's always wanted to coach, to the point where Dwight Howard even said, "Leave me alone and stop trying to teach me how to play basketball, you old man," when he was a Laker. Not in those words, but he didn't even accept his invitation because Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is universally thought of as a guy who's not an asset. And it sucks that even in the world of sports, athletes look at their own colleagues as assets. Now go ahead. I'm sorry, Jerome.
No, Dwight Howard's a dumbass for that, first of all. But
yes,
but to add to what you said, Stevie. And like I said, you follow sports, and if you've been following basketball this season.
No, I follow sports, but I work in sports.
Okay, yeah.
You guys got to realize I've been doing sports radio for years.
Yep, you've told me that. I know.
Yeah. But you definitely heard what I'm about to say. The narrative that they're trying to put together this year has, to your point, has been, when is LeBron going to pass Kareem on the scoring list?
Exactly.
They actually had a show on SportsCenter where they told you how long it would take him. They already have the date. They actually said if LeBron stays on this certain pace for the next 2 or 3 years, he'll pass Kareem on December 16th if he scores. And I just sat there like, well, damn.
No, but Jarrell, I mean, here's my point. Again, my goal today is to play devil's advocate. That's my goal. So I can come out of this hated by either of you guys, but I won't because you guys get what I'm doing. My point is this. Not saying I disagree, but I play devil's advocate again. So I want to keep the conversation going about this. LeBron James has already reached the mecca of the multi-billionaire, millionaire athlete who's universally loved and appreciated, who sponsors everything this side of Sprite. Does he necessarily need to be pushed anymore by the media? How do they accomplish this? If he's got his foot in the door as a spokesperson and as a model basketball player in the world of sports who doesn't need to push the agenda anymore, why are they still pushing him? Why?
I'll tell you why. Okay, go ahead, Jarrell.
No, I was going to say, because they need, like you said before, like they need to keep him relevant. Like the kids.
He's relevant already. He's LeBron James. He's already relevant.
But the NBA itself, because again, like you said, they don't value Kareem.
Right.
So since they don't value Kareem, and it's too late for Michael Jordan to pass Kareem, they need somebody to remove
they're shooting themselves in the head if that's their business model.
Because LeBron
James is going to retire in a few years, and they're not building enough stars right now.
But he might not catch Kareem. I'm not saying that he is. But that is a narrative that they create to make you. This is the deal. Back when Michael Jordan was at the height of his career. Okay? And he won 3, then he won 3 more. And he was at the height of his career. The NBA, he pulled the NBA like a donkey pulling a wagon or a horse pulling a wagon. That's the guy. And ever since Michael's been gone, they've been looking for the guy. They tried to do it with Shaq. Remember? They started putting him in all these dumbass fucking movies. He was on 50,000, and Shaq was a good guy to try to put. Every sport needs the guy that's over everybody else. Okay? Now this guy has become the guy. So, but to keep him from surpassing the other guy, you have to bring in the championships to keep him one notch lower.
I follow you there. Okay.
One notch lower, because who is the only guy in sports history to have a logo that's actually promoted on people's uniforms.
Jerry West.
Yeah.
No, Michael Jordan.
Oh, Jerry West is the logo of the NBA.
He's a logo of the NBA.
Right.
Michael Jordan's logo is on college football uniforms.
Yeah, absolutely.
College football, basketball, all kind of different sports all over the world. His logo.
Right.
Not the Nike logo, his logo for Nike.
You've turned me around a bit where right now, towards the end of this conversation, and we'll sign off soon, but towards the end of this conversation that's been widespread, you're turning me around a bit because now all of a sudden I'm realizing that this is bigger than the game itself.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll tell you one step further. Like for this season,
I'm actually, I want to make this statement. That's all you, Jarrell. I'm sorry, but I want to say this really quickly. I stand corrected. Jarrell can vouch for this too. When I'm wrong, I love to admit so. I think more people should. I've done a complete 180. I went into this thinking one thing, and I'm kind of changing my mind right now about this. There's a lot to this. Now I feel like, based on what Stevie's been elaborating on, and to yourself as well, Jarrell, that there is definitely something in play here. A lot bigger than what I thought was.
That logo is bigger than all of us.
I stand corrected. I'm actually wrong about it. Go ahead, Jarrell. I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, I was gonna say, like, in the NBA, because Nike has the contract to produce all the apparel for the NBA. There's only one team. There's only one team that Nike does not make jerseys for, and that's the Charlotte Hornets.
Yes.
Right.
The Charlotte Hornets is the only basketball team that has the Jordan logo on there. The Hornets jersey doesn't even have the NBA logo on it. It's just the Jordan. It's just the Jordan logo. And he's fun. I didn't think. You
remember when Roy Jones used to come to the ring?
Yes.
What was his logo?
My point. I stand corrected. Yeah, I know. You're right. You're right.
What I'm saying is when I make the reference that these arguments, you 100% right. Those arguments have been going on for years. Well, why would this argument come up during football season? Why would this argument come up? Why would this argument come up during a net? What's that?
I was going to ask you, in essence, you're saying that the Jordan brand is the biggest brand in sports right now. Well, it has been.
And as long as you got to realize, a lot of these millennials don't know Michael Jordan.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
He's just a sneaker guy to them.
I completely agree on this. I'm actually
to them right now. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. To kids today, when you say Michael Jordan, they're like, oh, that guy who makes sneakers.
Right.
I know him. The same way how Queen Latifah's a
a lot of them were really young when Michael was that good.
Yeah.
A lot of them were really young.
Stevie,
but now
this is why I love being able to talk to Stevie, because there's nothing vague about the conversation. There's no illusions. Mm-hmm. And I like the fact that right now you're patient enough to explain step by step as to why the objective of the NBA is to push this brand forward above all others.
Right. But going back to what I initially was talking about, when I was talking about people dying over these sneakers and stuff like that.
I remember the sneaker wars, sure.
Michael Jordan probably had been told by his attorneys and everybody else, don't say anything because it's all about the fucking money.
Of course.
Yeah. And he didn't say anything.
And
but that's why you will never see.
He had enough juice to actually tell them, I completely disagree with, I respectfully decline to do so, and I will make a chance.
But maybe he didn't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm just putting it, I'm not gonna, bury the man, but he was a young guy then. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But at the end of the day, you see a LeBron James who doesn't go for that bullshit. Mm-hmm. And that guy knows his juice. Huh?
Yeah. Now, I was gonna say, what was the situation in Charlotte where they were gonna ban the All-Star game? Because I can't remember if it was like racial or
it was a transgender situation.
Yeah.
It actually didn't want to have two bathrooms and
it actually took Adam Silver to pull the All-Star game from Charlotte in order for them to change their policy. Michael Jordan didn't want that fight because the Jordan brand was supposed to sponsor the All-Star game.
Exactly.
Well, look at the lobbyists. I mean, that's why you guys bring up a good point. all of a sudden the Jordan brand has a lot to lose. At some point, it's easy to say, why does a multi-billionaire put himself in a position where he's still striving for more? And
what was his?
Yeah, go ahead.
What was his? When they asked him about that, what he said? Republicans buy sneakers too.
Yeah, that was his answer. That tells you all you need.
But at the end of the day, hey, if Michael Jackson can come out and say, I never did anything. They're trying to say I did this and buy a commercial to do. You telling me Michael Jordan can afford to do one?
Yeah.
Of course.
And defend himself for like, hey, I mean, when people are dying over sneakers, that's really an indictment on our community, brother, as to how low we have gotten when it comes to worshiping bullshit. Come on, bro. It don't take but a second to tell your people, hey, don't worship this stuff. Because ain't nobody going to buy you coming out saying something is going to make more people buy them. People like, of other races and shit.
Yeah.
It's going to make more people buy them. But, maybe saying people.
Nate Archibald said it best. The business of basketball is bigger than basketball.
The business, yeah, that's right.
Nate Archibald.
Well, it is now. It is now because you got to remember something. A lot of people don't know this. Nike wasn't, back when they signed Jordan, they wasn't the biggest sneaker guy in the world then.
No. Converse was.
Yeah, I was going to say it was Converse.
And
Converse
Dr. J.
And a lot of the guys.
Yeah,
in the NBA, I think it was Converse.
It was Converse.
Yeah.
Julius Erving, even Bill Walton, Pistol Pete, they all endorsed Converse. And then, of course, there was a little while where Puma sneaked in to the game, but they were completely destroyed and dismantled by Nike. Puma sneaked into the game a little bit in 81, 82, but then by 84, Nike was widespread.
But they're back now.
What's that?
I don't think a lot of them never went. A lot of them never went anywhere. They just went to other places to start marketing their stuff.
Yeah.
Because when I've gone to Europe, you see Adidas, you see Essex, you see Puma. Yeah. And you know what I'm saying? I mean, some of the...
You can see Fila, right? Fila's still around.
Yeah, well, that's all I wear. It's Fila.
Yeah.
That's all I wear. Because I told people years ago, I will never buy another pair. Oh, this had to be in the late 80s. I'll never buy another pair of Nikes for the rest of my life. I haven't.
The last topic I want to ask before we close this out is a topic that I feel is appropriate right now for this conversation. It's very apropos. Stevie, what are your thoughts on right now some of the issues that we're hearing from NBA players speaking out against fans, against dumb, ignorant fans who are saying a lot of bigot comments? I mean, Russell Westbrook, I think, kind of pretty much opened up those can of worms when he experienced a lot of comments, I think, over in Utah in the regular season, actually. And
it was Utah. Yeah, it was Utah.
And I'm not surprised there. But
yeah. Well, I've been to Utah 6 times, brother, so it don't surprise me.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. You've been there. Now, do you feel as if this is something that needs to be addressed more and not just becoming an anomaly? Because right now, I'm not saying it's become an anomaly where one or two athletes are speaking about, racial tirades the fans have been spewing for years. But do you feel like it should be something that right now all sports should get behind in terms of the commissioners, in terms of sponsors, the athletes? Is this something that should be driven home more these days?
I think, this was inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
Because of just the state of what the country is right now.
Yeah.
And I honestly believe if it's not nipped in the bud, it's going to get worse.
And when you were hitting the road, I mean, not just in Utah, but anywhere. I mean,
what was that again? I didn't hear the question.
I mean, you're an athlete. You're someone who's been in the game of pro wrestling for years. When you traveled, was that something domestically, not internationally, but domestically, was that something that you had heard?
Well, looking at a 285-pound man that can jump a little fence. You know what I'm saying? And
well, not according to Chris Cruz. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And you depend on how close you are. It's like I don't really know if I want to say that to him.
Yeah, I agree.
Nah, I don't know if I want to say that to him.
So maybe in the world of wrestling, the fans were a bit smarter, I guess, when they.
And the pro wrestling fans, are all in on what's going on. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They're all in and they want to be a part of the show. A lot of times, me and my brother used to do this every night in a house show. We would pick somebody out of the audience. Okay, because you got to realize in the house shows we don't feel like working, man, because we got to do these shows. I might have to work 30 nights in a row. Okay, so in the house shows we're trying to take it easy. So we just do what we call in the business a lot of walking and talking.
Sure.
And we would come out with the belts, you know what I'm saying, and putting them up, talking shit to the audience and things like that. And we would pick one guy. And we will make sure it's a guy that nobody expects that we got a problem with. Now, this guy just brought his grandkids to the wrestling match, and, he's just trying to get through the night, And then me and my brother point him out, and I'll go over to my brother, and my brother will come over to me and go, what do you think about that guy right there? Okay, yeah, that's a good one. Let's get him. Okay? And then we would go, yeah, punk, we talking to you. Get up. I'll come over there and knock you out right now. And the guy's looking around like, are they talking to me? I'm not even a wrestling fan. I'm just happen to be here tonight. And then we're like, yeah, I saw how you were looking at me. You know what I'm saying? Don't you look at me like that. We just got to bring up somewhere that made us laugh. You looked at me the wrong way. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you better sit down, punk. As soon as we get through with these punks in the room, you better not be sitting there when I get back. Wow. So then, the other fans are trying to jump in and be a part of it. But we don't even notice them. We don't even look at them.
Right,
we just look at this one guy. Yeah. And we'll act like we're going over the fence, and the security guys will have to come hold us back, Get up, punk. Get up. Really and the whole building is going crazy now. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So if anybody had a chance to say something negative or derogatory or, racial epithets, this, that, and the other, they had a chance a million times. But no, all of this is about entertainment.
Well, here are my last thoughts, and now I want to turn it over to you guys before we sign out. My last thoughts are, in this particular case, activist James Lawson, who's still with us, said it best. James Lawson said, those who don't speak are mute. Those who speak about nothing are the same. If you don't say anything, but James Lawson, much credit to him, started the civil rights movement back in Nashville, Tennessee. A lot of people don't know that, but look him up. James Lawson is someone who I still think shouldn't be lost in the narrative. Martin Luther King Jr. even actually took a lot of his philosophies from James Lawson, who took his from Mahatma Gandhi. But in my opinion, if you don't speak, you're an enabler. That's pretty much what he was saying, guys. So the power of action, the power of recourse, and the power of history paving the way is in our hands.
Like I said, at the end of the day, man, with some of the stuff you're seeing going on, and like I said, you realize a lot of it has been going on in football for a while, but they suppressed it because you got 80,000 people at a football game, and at a basketball game, you probably got 16 to 18. It's a big difference. But you've seen them many times where people know they can get away with things like that, and when they know they can get away with things like that, that is forced that, they're going to continue to do it. And if you don't believe me, go look some of the stuff up that goes on in Europe.
Oh, it's a nightmare. You're right, especially in the world of soccer. I agree with you. You're right.
Well, do you remember a few years ago when Lewis Hamilton, you know him?
Yep, I do. I know the story, too. Go ahead.
Yeah. When those, and I think it was because he was beating Fernando Alonso.
That's the only reason.
Huh?
That's the reason, actually.
Right. And the people, I think Fernando Alonso was from Spain, I think, or Portugal.
Yep. España, Spain, yep.
Yeah. And to the point where they were circling it, that the FIA that's over the Formula One racing threatened to take the race away from their country.
Unbelievable. It's happening in Italy right now, folks. Look it up. It's happening in Italy right now.
This happened with Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah.
This happened because the man was black.
Yeah.
And they threatened to take the whole race away from that country. Do you know how many millions of dollars that would have been?
Incredible.
Because that guy had juice. And if that guy didn't have juice, whereas the FIA is going to back him because we need this guy, you know what I'm saying, because he's the flagship of what's going on right now. We got to protect him.
You're right. That's a good way of putting it. He's the flagship of what's going on right now. Jarrell, do you have any closing thoughts?
The next time we have you on, like, I would definitely love to hear about your Hall of Fame experience from start to finish.
I'll tell you before we can get off the phone. Fucking dreadful.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work.
Oh, man.
You know, that's dreadful, brother. I do nothing but work every day. So there it is. I hope that was enough for you. I hope I covered all bases. You know.
But we still, just to let you guys know, we're coming back on Friday again at our normal time, normal hour. Be sure to like and subscribe as usual. And remember something, fans. Tomorrow's mystery is our history.